Welcome to the second lesson on spatial planning. This lesson concerns the spatial planning in the European Union. The first spatial planning document related to the European Union 12 was Europe 2K, more oriented toward spatial policies rather than planning, followed by Europe 2K+, which carried the Dutch and French experience of spatial planning developed in previous decades. For example, in France, this experience is on DATER, Interministerial Delegation of Land Planning and Regional Attractiveness. The Germans, however, inside the debate, continued to frame the issue in terms of land use control, considered a sovereign right of the states. In response to this position, which may represent a limit to the takeoff of European spatial planning, but also of cohesion and cooperation between states, Faludi and Waterhout have specified that ESDP is not a master plan. It does not imply a pattern of land use imposed by the European Union, but which, nevertheless, has the merit of building an identity vision of the European Union and of triggering a focus on spatial development processes at the European level. In 1999, the European Spatial Development Perspective, the ESDP, was promoted by the Informal Council of Ministers responsible for spatial planning in Potsdam, an example of open method of coordination, which strongly argued the spatial planning approach, articulating some basic principles: the research of polycentric development in Europe, the urban-rural partnership, equal access to infrastructure and knowledge throughout Europe, the prudent management of the natural and cultural environment. The reasons that weaken and effective institutionalization of the territorial dimension of the European policies are to be found also in the lack of formal competence of the European Union in this field, not being included in any European Union treaty explicit reference of the government of the territory. However, there are some experiences of Europeanization of spatial planning, such as the one in the Netherlands, France, UK, but also in macroregions, which are the results of various European Union sector policies that influence spatial planning, as well as internal political choices. For example, almost the whole Dutch territory is covered by one or more European Union policies, and spatial planning is considered to be the most effective instrument to resolving the conflicts of these policies. Studies in the context of Southern Europe also suggest that European spatial planning takes shape by passing through the prism of progressive and complex changes in planning practice, through an eminently local and diversified process generated from the experience of European Union policies, a process that states that the European spatial planning has a life beyond the ESDP. This topic is also discussed by Andreas Faludi, who underlines how today the spatial planning Europeanization, strong in the 60s and 70s, has now come to a standstill and hopes for the recovery, recalling the potential of business as usual and deep change scenarios that rethink the basic categories of space and territory and reconfigure the concept of European integration. In Europe, a wide range of tools are used to express spatial planning policy. Often they are very different instruments, with content varying according to the place or time or preparation. In the following table, which attempts the first classification of spatial planning instruments, the term instrument is used in a general way, covering the full range of documents used to express planning policy, as well as those commonly referred to as plans. In the table, the different instruments are divided into four main groups according to the overall form and the purpose of the instrument. This table describes four types of instrument: the national policy and perspectives, the strategic instrument, the framework instrument or master plan, and regulatory instrument. The first type of instrument is the national policy and perspectives. The purpose is to identify the national government's spatial planning policies and strategy. They include documents which give general guidance of performance criteria for development and those which are spatially specific and are described as national plans. The areas covered is the whole member state, significant parts or special areas. The subcategories is national perspectives, spatial policy guidance, and sectoral plans guidance. The second type of instrument is strategic. The purpose of this instrument is to identify broad spatial development patterns for areas below member states and above the municipality. They do not generally identify specific location and are intended to be implemented through other lower tier instruments which specify locations. They are likely to be incorporated or be closely integrated with the expression of social and economic policy for the area. Strategic plans may be indicative in terms of the broad development patterns or programmatic in identifying specific quantities of growth and change for sub-areas. The areas covered is their boundaries are often the tide of the administrative tier of government which prepares them, the region or province, but they can be prepared for a functional planning region such as a coastal zone. Some countries have more than one tier of strategic instrument. The subcategories is general strategic instruments, second level strategic instrument for part of area, sectoral instruments, and city regions plans. The third instrument is the framework, the master plan. The purpose of the master plan is to identify a general spatial framework and criteria for the regulation of the land use over an area. They are locationally specific. They may be binding or non-binding in respect of regulation, but are generally implemented through lower tier plans. The areas covered generally is the whole of one municipality, but where local authorities are small, they may cover several, covering possibly a functional planning area, such as a town or city. The last instrument is the regulatory instrument. The purpose is to regulate the development and protection of individual parcels of land. This may be general regulation zoning plans, implementation instruments, or special instruments to secure particular types of development. For the areas covered, these may cover areas ranging from one site, or a neighborhood of one municipality, the whole of a municipality, or more than one. Exceptionally, instruments identifying land use zoning are prepared from larger areas covering an administrative region. For example, the subcategories is regulatory zoning instruments, local building control instrument, implementation instruments. In the context of spatial planning in European Union, the Council of Europe hosts the Conference of Ministers responsible for spatial regional planning, the CEMAT. CEMAT brings together representatives of 47 Council of Europe member states for the promotion of the territorial dimension of human rights and democracy for a sustainable spatial development of the European continent. The Council of Europe's activities relating to spatial planning began in 1970 in Bonn with the first European Conference of Ministers responsible for regional planning. In 1968 publishes the historical report on spatial regional planning, a European problem. In the European context, the ISPON European Spatial Planning Observatory Network program is very significant. The ISPON 2020 program aims to promoting and fostering a European territorial dimension in development and cooperation by providing evidence, knowledge transfer and policy learning to public authorities and other policy actors at all levels. The objective of the ISPON 2020 cooperation program is to support the reinforcement of the effectiveness of European Union cohesion policy and other sectoral policies and programs under European structural investment funds, as well as national and regional territorial development policies, through the production, dissemination and promotion of territorial evidence covering the entire territory of the 28 European Union member states. On this website, you can find a comparative analysis of territorial governance and spatial planning system in Europe. Also in the European context, there is the Association European Council of Spatial Planners that brings together 28 professional spatial planning associations and institutes for 24 European countries as well as corresponding members. It is an umbrella association providing its members with a common framework to promote the visibility, recognition of the important societal role and practice of planning and urban development in Europe, and its teaching, continuing professional development and the definition of professional responsibilities. Thank you for your attention.